My name's Laura Bousfield. I am Head of Feasibility and Startup at their Clinical Research Network. So I'm here today hosting this study support session with colleagues from two partner organisations, one of whom is here in person and one of whom will be joining us on Zoom. So Kate, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kate Greenwood. I'm a Senior Improvement Delivery Manager at the Health Research Authority now. I was previously of the NHS R&D Forum and I was an R&D Manager in a trust, so I'm hoping to bring all of those perspectives to this conversation.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to test a technological miracle here and see if by Zoom, for the power of Zoom, which I'm sure you all got used to over the last 18 months, we have James Hughes from NHS England and NHS Improvement. James, can you hear us? Do you want to introduce yourself?
I can hear you, Laura. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Fabulous. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, my name's James Hughes. I'm one of the Senior Research Managers from NHS England and Improvement. I'd like to apologise. I had intended to be there physically, but unfortunately, my eldest son came back yesterday from school with a positive COVID result, and the youngest started symptoms last night. So we've all been down to the test centre and had our tests done, and I'm quite disappointed I can't be with you. So I feel that I might be quite disruptive being on Zoom. I can't actually see anyone. I can just see myself. So I think you've got the bad end of the stick in that deal, if I'm honest. So what I'll do is I'll try and keep muted as possible, and then I'm happy to chip in on kind of Laura and on Kate bringing me in. I haven't got any interruptions planned, but I am mindful of the BBC interview where the man's children invaded it and started entertaining the crowd from behind him. I don't have that planned, so if they do, we'll just have to roll with it. Thanks, Laura.
Okay, well, thanks for bearing with us, everyone. I'm sure lots of you have been in this position before. Maybe it's your first time that you've left the Home Office. Maybe this is the first time you've presented in a long time or attended a conference, as it is for Kate and I. So I hope you will bear with us as we speak to you this afternoon. So to start off with, what we are going to try and do is a bit of a technological word cloud. So everyone in this room here is changing lives. That sounds like a really big statement, but that, through where I work, is exactly what you are all doing. And we, as three different organisations in this healthcare setting, are here to support you to do that research, that life-changing research. But what we want to explore with you all in the room today is why you think we exist as organisations. So there's the Clinical Research Network, NHS England and NHS Improvement, and the Health Research Authority are all support organisations for research. But why do you believe that we exist to coordinate nationally? What words pop into your head when you hear about one of these three organisations or us as a collaborative working to support your research? So we're going to go to the Glisser app. We have a word cloud function in there, which I think is about to appear on screen. Maybe, yep.
Don't be shy, but be polite.
Yeah. We're testing out the innovations. We're putting these into practice in our presentation. So, any words that pop into your mind when you think about why we are supporting research through national organisations like ourselves? This is what I wish I'd planted some. No, we've got some. Good. Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, great stuff. Kate, any jumping out at you there?
Streamline. I like the everyone in the middle, and try. That's interesting too. I
try. Yeah.
Support, obviously, and support research. Oh look. Yep.
Okay.
Harmonisers, safety. Interesting.
Yeah. Efficient.
Streamline again. Efficient. Duplication. A big.
Let's hope that is removing it rather than adding it. But there could be two ways to look at that. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, great stuff.
Alignment.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so that's actually really great to see. We kind of had two plans for this, depending on which way that went with the words that came into that word cloud. So if we have a look at some of the working themes or the words that come up when Kate and I and James and our respective organisations are working together through a lot of the challenges that you heard about this morning, a lot of the themes that Lucy mentioned for the NIHR in that recovery, growth and resilience plan. These are a lot of the words that we hear in those conversations. So we've tried to, I suppose, showcase where those things might maybe match with some of the bits that came up. I think probably you've got everyone where we've got people on there. So there's some bits. Streamline came up. I don't think we've got that one on there, but there are lots of words to that effect. We had efficiency, effectiveness, I think was on the previous one, support and supportive. So there's some similarities there. And I guess what we're trying to get to there is our common purpose, that we are all here trying to work towards one collective goal in coordinating this research, because we all exist to help in delivering this research. We want to help plan where that research can take place in this infrastructure. We want to help where those places may be across the country, and we want to help perform that research. We're absolutely not the organisations that are on the coalface, I think is the phrase, and working with the patients, but we are there in the background supporting that infrastructure so that it can happen across the nation for the nation. And that's a common theme through all three of our organisations. That's what we're here to do. So if we have a think about why we exist as organisations and why we are put in place to do that coordination, I'm wondering whether anyone has seen this alternative guide to the NHS video on YouTube. We'll do an old-fashioned raise of hands. Got 1, 2, Sinead.
King's Fund.
King's Fund, sorry. I might not have mentioned that. So we've got a few hands here. So if you Google, the link is on there, but so you might be able to access it through the Glisser app and the slides. But if you Google the King's Fund Alternative Guide to the NHS, where you would end up after 6 minutes is this absolutely wonderful diagram that tries to get across in a very simple way a very complicated structure, which is 1 in 10 people in the UK work within this structure. 1 in 10 people are working within that system there to provide health and care services across the nation. That is a huge system, and that is not one legal entity. This is made up, if you do get the opportunity to watch this video, and that would be a lovely promotion from this event, to go away and have a look at that, to try and, I suppose, understand a little bit more about the complexities of how that system is structured to deliver the care across the nation, but also reinforcing why organisations like myself and Kate and James's exist to try to help navigate through that when research is being delivered in that system. We're trying to transcend any level of complexity through this national coordination, through taking a route that hopefully removes duplication that we saw on the word cloud rather than creates that. We're absolutely not in the business of trying to repeat anything that's done elsewhere. This is very much for streamlining. Okay. And so what we wanted to do in this part of the section then, talking about how we're going to evolve the study support service, is give you some examples of how we are able to coordinate across that system and exactly what that can provide. So I think COVID has given us a really great example of where this networking works really, really well. It strengthened all of our relationships, including the 3 organisations that are virtually and physically here in front of you today, in order to work towards that common purpose. I think Ben mentioned this in his talk earlier around the need to have that laser focus on one common goal, and that's very much what COVID allowed us to do, to pivot and all work together towards delivering that particular type of research. So Kate, I guess you've got the R&D background and you've now moved into the HRA. How does it feel to you to work in a coordinated system?
Well, I think, I mean, I don't know how many of you are as old as me, but I can remember when I actually made up my own R&D form. I actually designed my own R&D form for my trust in Portsmouth, and I'm even old enough to remember when there was ethics committees in individual hospitals, and you had to go to every single R&D department and use every single R&D department's different form and photocopy your things 15 times to get it to the ethics committee and on a typewriter and all of those things. And so I think what it makes me realise is how far we have actually come. It's really easy to think about what's wrong with the system, but to realise how far we've come at pulling the strands together to make sure that all those individual dots can function, but that we can function as a UK system as well. And so that's what we're all trying to pull together to achieve, so that we don't ride roughshod over all the individuals, but we do support and enable them to be able to not have to do everything each time, every time, differently.
Absolutely. I think there's some key stats I think I've written down on the back of my one basic note card here that was really kind of helps bring that home, that there are 100% of trusts taking part in research. That's happened for the last 3 years running, that every single organisation has been able to take part in research. I know we're at 75% for commercial, and we have fluctuated between, I think, 60 and 85 or 86% of trust. So that is showcasing, I think it was in a recent R&D UK report, that we are spreading research out across the UK by this joined up approach, and increasing the amount of patients that can get access to research. I think it was 35,000 last year were able to take part in commercial research. So the system is clearly trying to work to join all of that up and coordinate that across the country. And James, should we bring you in here for some NHS England comments around embedding that research culture that, again, I think it was Ben and maybe Lucy had mentioned that as well this morning, around making sure that research is embedded in healthcare professionals and their day-to-day activities.
Yes, thank you, Lauren. And I would fully echo and agree with what Kate said. I probably am in that category of remembering phrases like the R&D levy before 2000, when it was revamped, and that the progress that has been made is monumental. And I don't think we should underestimate or kind of brush over that the coordination of different organisations is vast. Picking up on the embedding, yes, it's absolutely core within our group, the Innovation, Research and Life Sciences, and within colleagues across NHS England, that embedding research is not just a one-off process, it's a continual process. As the NHS evolves, as it changes, as the organisations in it mix, then there's always that need to really put research and in the embedment of research across all what the commissioned providers undertake as one of the columns in which they stand. And it is a continued process that evolves with the people as the people involved at the organisations, but also has pretty much taken across the piece. So we're not thinking more, we're thinking, as well as the organisations, we're thinking about the professionals within those, and actually thinking then actually where do we go with the professionals on there. So the Royal Colleges, the societies that accredit those colleagues as well. And it is one of those strands that underpins all the activities, NCBR, which we'll touch on later, but consenting, research contact, all those bits that actually, if we don't continue with embedding, and then it will slow up and it'll be more difficult. And we don't want to invent the wheel, we want to keep that conversation flowing with those organisations. I'll stop there and hand back over to you, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you, James. So hopefully what you can see on this diagram here, that we've tried to pictorially represent what we've been describing to you this morning. And this is where our study support service is headed in the future. We've had a lot of lessons to learn from not only from COVID, but also prior to that. The service itself that the CRN developed in 2013 was developed with probably lots of people who are here today. I've seen a couple of names of individuals who were involved in shaping what that support service looks like. And what we have come to understand is that we need to get a lot clearer on where our roles sit within this system, that we need to simplify how to access that support. Claire talked about it in her earlier talk around the Find, Recruit and Follow-up service, which is, for me, is very exciting. I think this will really add to and shape the way that we can do this study planning and placement support with that amazing range of data sets that Claire is talking about. So this diagram is really trying to illustrate that we have these spaces where an element of national coordination can pay a real service, I suppose, to bringing all of these NHS and social care and wider care providers research participation together, so that we are able to provide access for more patients across the UK. We work with our devolved administration colleagues on this. We've got a really clear role for where the approval system sits and where the information that's coming into that system can be used in different parts. You know, something Kate and I talk about a lot of late is where information is going into two different IT systems. You've got two different logins that are asking for exactly the same information. You're getting emails asked about what sites are participating when you've already listed it in another system, and we're stood next to each other. We're on calls all the time together as organisations working collaboratively. So these are clearly some next steps that we can do to make it simpler for you to access this, I suppose, plate or menu of support that is available for us. And then the key bit on this diagram here is the flow back of that information. So when these studies are being performed across the system, how do we ensure that we are gathering that delivery information? So I don't mean that, you know, performance monitoring in the way that yourselves already do, because you need those studies to deliver. This is around us being able to utilize that information to help plan and place the next group of research coming through the system, or exploring where we can use that information to make refinements or improvements. That feedback loop is absolutely key for us to continue to develop our support service and make sure that it's real time. Definitely heard that mentioned this morning. I think it was Ben again who had said the power of getting information in real time and hours, and I'll take you through an example of that in a moment. But really do note that this is absolutely a wraparound support. This is not trying to replace what NHS organisations do. This is in support of that. It's the infrastructure that sits behind that. Let's see if we go on to... Right, so before we move on, I guess it is just a plea to remind everyone that this is a work in progress. When I'm definitely not going to be standing up here saying that the study support service that we offer is reached its perfection in 2021. This is very much something that we would like to continually evolve with your input, listening to feedback, and as data and services evolve, we will evolve that service alongside that. So the planning and placement and performance of support currently is delivered through the study support service. That isn't going to change for the clinical research network. We've hopefully just made it a little bit clearer about where that sits. There's clearly a lot of work that we've got to do around access and people and growing those relationships with individuals. That's something that came through a lot in the discussions we had during the COVID-19 recovery for commercial studies. So we're going to be, sorry, apologies for where the M has disappeared to there. We're going to be talking about these services in a slightly different way. We're going to be talking about them supporting yourselves to plan and place and perform research in exactly the way that we've just described. And so to give you a tangible example of how we're going to start to do this, we could probably look to the data sets that Claire talked about in her earlier sessions, where we're talking about the wealth of information that exists in this collective healthcare system. Ben mentioned this would be his magic wand wish list area that he would address. And so it seems really timely then that what we're trying to do with the study support service is provide you with access to this whole range of data that does now sit at our fingertips 10 years on from having created that service to support research initially. So there's lots of experts in the field that we can provide you with access to during your planning stages of the study. So those might be patient experts, as we heard about in our keynote speakers earlier today, and also providing that through clinicians. Experts are always emerging and evolving. Research is hopefully a lot more attractive now, and there will be people really wanting to get involved in this. How do you find out where those investigators are and where that expertise is in different healthcare settings or running your study in a different way? That's absolutely the support that the study support service itself can provide a front door to. And sitting behind that is a lot of data around infrastructure. So this is not around patient data. We're talking about where research happens, when it happens, who's involved. And that's the type of information that we are really hoping to grow as part of this spreading research across the UK, layered up with what Claire was talking about, this patient prevalence or aggregated data. Now, there is going to be lots of layers of that, but how do we help you bring all of those bits of information together so that you can look at where the patients are, where the interested sites are, where the investigators are? How do we bring all of that together so that you can access that information to inform where might be an appropriate place to run that research? That's ultimately what we're trying to do with this rebranding, I suppose, of the support that we offer. So the way to access a lot of this information is just to talk to us. We're people, there's two of us here, one of us on a screen today, but the network has thousands of staff across the NHS who are all embedded to help support research. We have dedicated teams in the 15 regions who are absolutely geared up to talk you through what is available and to work out where we can best support you or add to what you're already doing. Again, it's not about duplication, it's about supporting the activities that you're already undertaking. So an example of this, using the data that we've got in the COVID pandemic, is what's up on the screen here. Now, there was a static snapshot used in the slide set to help inform site selection for a particular study. And it actually went out in that format multiple times before it really got any traction in terms of using this to inform a decision. And what happened when people got involved was we actually used this app live. We used what we call Open Data Platform, which is where you can see all of the information that the Clinical Research Network collates. And we matched that up with patient data that was coming through NHS England at the time. So very much a proof of concept for what Claire was talking about in the find part of the three-step service. And so we could layer on where those patients are with where the sites that are interested in the research are, or where the sites with capacity are, or where the sites are that are already taking part in a number of studies. There are so many filters that we could apply to this. And for one particular study, we did this every week, and we did it live, and we looked at where would be the best site to target next to keep that flow of patients coming in to do that recruitment. that demonstrates the power of bringing together those different data sets, that clinical experience, the patient data, and the site and the capability and the capacity data. It's only through national coordination that we're able to provide that collective view, and we're really hoping that you will all support that being a supplementary piece of information that will help in what you're doing when working with these organisations. So hopefully this is giving you a bit of a flavour of how we can, all three organisations can work a little bit more collaboratively, because that's the planning and the placement section. But we've clearly got lots of other activities that happen in the setup space around the approvals and the setup, and also going on to then embedding research within these care settings. So all of these things need to be working in tandem to really achieve the biggest effect. I think when we first launched the study support service 10 years ago now, it was very much done in isolation. So I'm going to pass on to Kate to give you a bit more detail around the HRA approval, and I can see some hands going up, so we'll get to those very shortly.
Okay. If you just leave it on that screen, that's good. Okay. So thank you, and as I think I said in my introduction, I've only just joined the HRA, so I've not been there that long, but I have come from an NHS R&D background and tend to have that focus, and I can see that I've watched the HRA journey, and it's coming up to 10 years, which I don't know, I can't quite believe myself, but I've watched the journey from you know, sort of trying to standardise to actually providing a single assurance which provides NHS organisations and you as sponsors with that assurance that the research is ethical, well governed, legal, compliant, and those safe, and those things. So it's done a great job doing that. But it is evolving, and it is providing more than just that service. So one of the main messages I suppose I'd like to give over is, I don't know how many people are aware, is that the HRA has a bigger role than just providing approvals. It is a non-department government arm's length body, and under the Care Act in 2014 has a role to coordinate and standardise practice. So there's a lot of our role is to support and develop and shape good practice and guidance to enable research to happen in health and care. So it's not just about providing a stamp, and I don't know how many of you have seen the Think Ethics recent program that we've talked about. It's about not just thinking about the thing that we're providing, but the way that we can help people shape how they think about the study setup, or the ethical considerations in a study from the beginning. So we provide a really good assurance, and that works really well, but we also know that sites still need the information that they need to help set up and deliver in the way that you need it to happen, in the time that you need it to happen. They need the information, and the right information at the right time, and so do you. So a lot of what we're thinking about is how do we help support that process. So we're not just an approvals process, we are standardising and coordinating, but we do also have a systems leadership role, and we're very much a key partner in, as NHS England Improvement and NIHR in the Recovery, Resilience and Growth Programme, which you've heard a lot about today. And I heard, I think it was Shuli Porkis say, it's the first time really that all of those organisations, numbers of organisations, have come together to try and solve the problem of how we improve UK clinical research together. And that's, even though we've all sort of talked about it, it's never really happened together in that way. So it is quite an amazing thing. And we've got a couple of screens at the back with more information about it, but all the different partners that are playing a part, industry representation, charities, regulators and bodies. And so the HRA are doing quite a lot in this space to streamline study setup, so to help streamline that process to work out what the information is that sites and sponsors need, to provide more guidance on things like diversity and decentralization, to support the find, recruit and follow-up service, as you heard earlier in the information governance side of things, to support pilot studies, a pilot on with the ECMC network, to work through the National Contract Value Review, and to work to create more of our model templates, which is really a key thing that I think, again, stops that duplication at site. So there's a lot in the streamlining space. We're also trying to work through what better enables patient-centered innovative research. What does that even mean? Who gets to decide? Those kind of things. And support our colleagues in making sure that the NHS, that research is embedded in the NHS. So that's a key part. We're also, one of the main things we do is provide leadership in patient and public involvement. We've heard a lot about that today as well, and the transparency agenda, when we will be also ensuring that clinical trials are registered and reported as they should. So in the plan, so we're doing a lot of the systems leadership and a lot of the in progress bit. But what you can do now, what's on offer now in the HRA, is you can get support through the HRA queries line. Again, you can speak to people. Come and speak to us on the stand. You can get guidance. There's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of guidance on the website, but it's all moving over to IRAS. So IRAS has got a lot of all the guidance that we're evolving and working with partners to provide. We provide the single assurance, as you know. We provide information for sites, templates, and model agreements. If you can use them in an unmodified way, that helps. And the combined review with the MHRA, a new service that we've developed throughout the pandemic to make sure that you get one review, one approval, and one decision at the end. So the future is hopefully quite bright. We're all together trying to make this happen. We've got some distance to go, but the HRA is absolutely committed to making that happen, and we are listening. The future for us is to provide a hub, or a world-class hub, for intuitive research approvals, research management and guidance that would be driven by IRAS, and transparent research that involves patients and the public. And we call this, and we think about this really, as the ideal path. What to do, when to do it, and how to do it. So how we can support the system to provide the right information at the right time to the right people, signposting to advice and support, and most importantly, the bit that I've probably forgotten, is the integration with other systems, with partners, so that those IT systems don't just go there to there to there, that they do interface and that you can seamlessly move from one to the other. That's the plan anyway.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kate. So there's clearly a lot more activities happening than in some of our simple diagrams here, but really what we're trying to demonstrate to everybody today is that we know that we need to bring all of this support together in one system, in one ideal path that is a route through all of this support. That we spoke about this earlier in the keynotes, that how do you know where to access this? How do you know where to go to get the right information at the right time so that you're getting the support that you need to deliver these studies within this evolving system? And that's not just Kate and I. We also have a fairly relatively newly formed research unit at NHS England and NHS Improvement, of which James is one of those colleagues. And so the three of our organisations are involved in rolling out the National Contract Value Review. So there's various elements of that process that we all have different aspects to. We've got a tool that the CRN facilitates. We've got an approval that the HRA provides where the costings and contracting model agreements are part of those requirements. And then James will chat through where NHS England view for this project is going, but we are all working together to ensure that we're removing that duplication in the system and aiming to reduce the setup times as a result. So James, would you like to highlight some of NHS England's activities?
Yes, thank you, Laura. And actually, going back to the point you raised about the setup of the study support service a while ago, I think that's probably a fair summation of some respect where NHS England rather than NHS England, NHS Improvement, its research team was done. It was very much looking introspectively at researching the commissioning routes in which NHS England was undertaking, and there was always a natural progression of our organisations coming together, and I really think recent events have brought that togetherness much more rapidly. Thinking again about the pandemic and how there had to be rapid transformation of on the ground services, and then the focus on the fourth column in terms of research into the COVID-19 virus and then rollout of the vaccines. And I think the breadth of what we at NHS England and now NHS England and Improvement have been tasked at looking at has actually grown significantly as well. So again, thinking about the response to the pandemic, we were also working with colleagues in the Department of Health and Social Care on ensuring that the continued access and progression of trials when we had the exiting of the European Union, to make sure that there was no serious problems with activities there. I think what we've looked at as a group, and again, not just in research but within our innovation and life sciences group, is that we are now working much closer with NHSX, which have been brought into NHS England Improvement, and I think that was highlighted on one of your previous slides in terms of the data. There are huge amounts of data that NHS England, I'm just going to call us NHS England rather than NHS England, NHS Improvement, NHS England do gather on a daily basis and dare I say on an hourly basis, which are chewed over internally, but actually those give a great highlight to what's going on within the provider organisations. And of course, one of the key things that we're working with very closely with Kate's team and the HRA is ensuring that whatever we put together in terms of our frameworks, in terms of the national directives that NHS England can put together to support and to shape how activities happen within the NHS provider organisations, is to make sure that our workings are very much led towards a UK style. I mean, we have to recognise that the NHS is split across the four nations, and each nation is tasked with undertaking and commissioning and rolling out the provision of services, but we do want to make sure that whatever we do collaboratively, so that the UK is seen as a one system. We're not there yet. I would hope no one would say we're there yet, but we are definitely working towards that. And again, that's with the HRA, who have the single approvals and the IRAC systems coming together. And I think before I touch on to NCVR, the other bit that I would highlight to this group is again the transformation that's coming in terms of the service provisions across England, and that is the formations of the integrated care systems or the integrated care boards. So those will be at this time, my understanding, and it is yet to be signed off by Parliament, those will be 15 regions where those boards are collective of NHS trusts, primary care colleagues, third-party colleagues, social care, academic units, and even the local councils will be tasked and will be budgeted to look at the needs of the individuals within their geographical boundaries. Now, I highlight that because that would be seen as a challenge, because it changes the model on service delivery. But wherever there's a challenge, there's an opportunity, and I think the opportunity may be in terms of this day is that actually we would potentially have a greater reach for research for individuals. The place at which they receive that research or the clinical service might be more accessible than our standard hospital sites, GP sites, community centres, etc. So there's a great opportunity, I believe, for really exploiting that new service delivery on the ground and making sure that the opportunities for everyone across the regions, across the country, is increased. So jumping to the National Contract Value Review, yes, of course, I mean, this was started around about 2018, 2019, and we'd got to the point of having a pilot scheme rolled out in the early 2020s, which was then subsequently paused for reasons we've touched on. And it's during that time, and exactly as Laura said, with the use of real-time data, with the use of different systems looking at the same data and looking at it from different perspectives in terms of research, that we reevaluated the scope of the NCVR project, and we thought actually what we wanted to do was, our main outset was to absolutely take out duplication from across the system, to speed up this and effectively make sure that it is those specialist teams who can communicate with each other, collaborate with each other across industry and the NHS to give the better outcome. And there will be a cost efficiency saving with not having those multiple conversations, negotiations. So the NCVR has been slightly redesigned, and it's not been a radical redesign. It's redesigned to have a lot more of the data up front. So what we would look to is that providers provide, I couldn't think of a better word, the data up front. That means that they have full control of the data they are submitting into the system, and it means that the actual transparency across the system is increased. We're looking towards timelines of the new financial year for a phased rollout of this programme, NCVR. Of course, we will have to quickly adapt to when we find those unknown unknowns that crop up when we roll this out, but effectively we are looking to have those national coordinators who will assist with getting these research studies open as fast as possible and as cost effective as possible, but making sure that all parties are treated fairly and equitably, up and running in the next financial year. The product that will come in next year will not be the end product. I would hope no one would expect it to be, but it'll be the start from which we build then. And again, try to use the integrating of different data systems and different accessible systems so that we're not creating a standalone product that assists with getting studies up and running and people to have conversations, but also sits alongside the UK approvals, sits alongside the study support, sits embedded fully within the LCRNs, where you'll have the local experts who will know and understand the sites for what the study does require. I've probably touched on everything I wanted to on that, Laura. Was that okay? Again, I'm sorry, I can't see any slides or if I've sent everyone in the audience to sleep.
No, don't worry, there's a lot of information that we are throwing at everybody here, but hopefully different parts of it will have touched people's different interests, because there's a whole range of support and activities that all of our organisations are undertaking. A lot of this does happen in the background, and I think that's what we're really trying to get across today, that there is a lot of infrastructure that allows these things to happen nationwide. We have a complex system because there are lots of people involved in delivering healthcare. You know, back to 1 in 10 people are employed in health and social care. That's a huge amount of people that potentially could be promoting research as well. So there's a big task ahead of us to support research across all of those settings and for everybody that is involved in providing that care. And these are just some of the activities that are helping to work towards that. I'm pretty sure we've got our progress slide back in here again, because we are making progress. We are not delivering a perfect service as yet, and we will obviously continue to evolve that. We, I suppose, have touched upon lots of different parts here, so maybe there's some time at the end of the session for all of you to reflect on all the things that are being done differently, I suppose, that you've heard today than maybe we came and talked to you about many, many years ago, where we're telling you where to access certain services or where to put your information in which system. This is a truly collaborative effort from all of our organisations to try to streamline, back to the word cloud, streamline, make it more efficient to be delivering research in this system. We are here to help all of you who are trying to change lives in what you are developing. We are here to support with that. So please do outreach to all of the people that are employed in these organisations to do this. So maybe there is some time to reflect on what might need to be different in order to make the most of what is available here. There's a lot of things that we've talked through there that may be new ways of working or may require slightly different ways of thinking to harness some of that information. We've all got our own operating procedures. We're trying to bring, I suppose, as much as that together in one offer as we can, so that we can provide bespoke services that will meet a need for support, but obviously we're going to have to flex that as we progress, and hopefully this framework gives us some good foundations to start doing that and build on to be future ready together. So I think that's the end of our session. I guess I can't see a clock anywhere. I can't really see anything with the lights, but
10:02.
We've got 10:02. Okay, so we probably do have time if anyone wants to ask any specifics, or have we, as James has said, bombarded you with so much information that there's nothing to see there. But yeah, we've got a question. Hello, Ellen, hello. I can now, yes, I can. Lovely red jumper,
right, yeah.
so I can see you. Hello. Yeah, absolutely. So not at the moment, we're not, but that is definitely the future plan. So at the moment, all we're doing is our continued service of distributing that across the UK and providing you that snapshot back of capacity at that point in time. But as you saw on that slide with the data piece at the bottom in green, that is absolutely where we are trying to get to. So we would bring those two bits together. So the package of information that you would get back would include information from those hubs with that kind of data. Now, if we have got any business development managers in the room, an element of that is sort of available now by speaking with your key account manager, because we do have some prevalence information that we can look to combine up with that site identification response. So we can do it in some way, but we want to get a lot slicker at presenting you with effectively a dossier of that information. Yeah. No, I'm going to refer back to Claire's answer before, which was something about bolting lots of bits of the system together and bringing people into that offer. So I actually couldn't give you a timeline, but that is absolutely progress. It's where we're working towards getting to.
Any other?
Any more? Maybe everyone's busy self-reflecting.
Laura, it's James. I'm really sorry.
It's James!
I can't see the audience. I can't see the audience or those guys, and I couldn't hear any of the questions. So if any questions come up for NHS England, I mean, I apologise that I really wanted to be there to catch people, but if there is anything that I've said that people wanted to catch up on, the organisers will share my contact details, so please do get in touch with me directly.
All right, will do. Thank you, James, and we'll repeat the questions from now on.
I was wondering, I worked in CRO before, it is a bit of a cat market. You look at lots of different countries, particularly in a large phase 3. And it often comes down to how quickly you can get up and what the cost is. And I wondered, as you progress, do you benchmark at all across Europe, for instance, or that's going to be the most direct comparator so that we know we are competitive?
Okay, so if I summarise that question, we're looking at information around setup and cost in relation to benchmarking to other countries, not just within ourselves. So I guess this is linked a little bit with what we're saying around the data in different systems, because the setup time at the moment, I guess, we've tried to do this many times before from a CRN point of view anyway, to get that very start and end point. And we've got lots of data points along that setup process that we could draw out and try to, I suppose, benchmark against. But we need that single definition almost to be able to benchmark it initially. So yes, there's lots of data out there. Yes, we're always trying to get hold of that. If anybody has any data that they want to share or any benchmarking reports that they want to link us in with, we would always be very happy to receive those. But it is about trying to get that comparable definition, because the way that we are going about doing things, for example, where we're nationally coordinating a lot of these activities, what then would be a comparator to that? Who do we need to be comparing to? And that's very much where all of you in the room here can help us understand what other countries are doing, what other systems are doing. We don't have a huge amount of visibility operationally. I'm talking the business development team may well do, but very happy to be signposted towards where we could do more of that, definitely.
I think what we want to get to is something that's meaningful, so that we can actually make meaningful comparisons, and because we all know that when we try to do some of these things, it can have, perverse results, and so it's making sure that we can collect data that is genuinely comparable, so we can make genuine improvements, so like for like. There's a chap over there.
Sorry, we can see a hand up at the back.
Is there any linkage between this and Genomics England? Because increasingly on the cancer side, we're looking at endpoints which depend on the genomics of the individual patients we want to put into the study. Things like breast cancer. We saw in HERSI recently, where that was dependent on genomics input. Is there a linkage between what we're doing in terms of the science and the patient? It's different. The centres which are specialising in genomics.
Well, I can certainly take that from a CRM point of view. This is quite, it's a new collaboration for me. If my colleague Sheena is in the room, I hope she would have put her hand up for this. No. Okay, so she introduced me to the NHS England Genomics Medicine Service Collaborative the other week, where we were talking about the costing template and using that for particular research coming through their system. And we were also then having a look at where there are further linkages that we can explore and bring that into the fold. James, I'm going to reach to you just on the off chance that you know anybody in Genomics Medicine's service. But yeah, that absolutely is another one of those collaborators that we need to bring into this collective support.
Hi, Laura, it's James. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question again. Was there anything to specifically answer, or was it just a link to genomics?
Yeah, it was just whether you had anything to add to that. I was just describing there that the CRN is in very early days of conversations about linking in with that genomics medicine service. We have them incorporated into our early feedback service. So when a particular study comes through in that system, we are outreaching to that group. So we're in the very early days of growing a stronger collaboration there. And it was just in case you wanted to add to that response.
I suppose the simple answer is yes, we do have links across there. We have two kind of internal processes. We have the research needs panel, where we put out we facilitate different departments within NHS England to come along and look at key areas that they want to have a research study or a programme of research in. And I do know the genomics medicine team have put in a few expressions of interest to be on those panels and to present at those panels. And the other thing very quickly is we have a research leaders meeting, which is very senior, way above my pay grade, people within NHS England coming together and to talk about the different aspects of where their departments are and where they see research fitting within there. So again, maternity and women's health will be one, specialised commissioning is another one, genomics medicine. We do have links in there. So if we do need, or if you do need me to contact anyone, if there's a specific or just a general question, certainly do come and use me, Laura.
Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, hi. Last year, Laura, I used your real-time stuff in Mr. COVID work, phase 2, and it was absolutely brilliant, sort of playing whack-a-mole with various outbreaks.
You did not plant that, everybody.
No,
you did not plant that.
But one of the things is with the benchmarking side of things, there are quite a few software programs like Grant Plan and things like that that do give costings in various different countries, fair market costings.
Yeah.
Here, and here. And a lot of big pharma, a lot of big device companies will use that to cost their studies. And we come up with a number, and then we have to shoehorn it into our systems on the ICT, which you can't even upload into. So you do need to look at that because it doesn't always work out in your favour when it's recosting. It certainly would pull in a bit more cash for the NHS and for the NIHR. But the compatibility of the systems, and again you've alluded to that, CPMS doesn't talk to IRAS, and we're literally having to type the same words into both, and we need some sort of a lot more integration systems, which I can see you're working on. And one final thing to sort of click on a bit, can we have a new NCIA?
Yes.
Because at the moment, so 2014 in about 3 days.
So because I am new, I'm really scared to say something that may not be true. But it's definitely, yes, is the answer to that. I will need to check for sure where it is, but definitely. So there's quite a few agreements that are coming very soon, and I know that for sure. So there are some that are definitely coming. The other thing I didn't mention was technical assurance, and that's coming, opening up and coming for radiation for CTIMPs in January. So there is actually a lot of stuff, and I think just hearing what you're asking for is really important. And one of those things where we can stand up and say these are the services we provide, but actually we're dealing with lots and lots of different organisations who've got lots of different drivers and pulls and global levers, and so we've got to sort of unblock some of these things together, because it's hard to oil the wheels and not cause more problems than you're trying to solve. So yes, any help in that regard is gratefully received, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, what a lovely positive note to end on. It's better than where we were. That's literally what we are aiming for, constantly improving, but some really helpful insights there, and hopefully it reassures everyone that the things that you're describing we are aware of. They're not brand new. We are on with making those linkages, and we are committing to continuing to do that. You've heard it all this morning around those long-term plans. We are making progress towards this, and hopefully we'll do so better now that we are working truly collaboratively. So really, thank you all for your time today. Thank you for your input, and I really hope you can reflect on how far we have come in this collaborative journey, and where we can then continue to evolve to harness the power of what we offer, because it's only through engagement with this offer that we can continue to grow and evolve it and actually make a difference for those patients around the country. Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you.